Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya, Josh McCuistion, back in the Houston Soonerscoop.com studios. This is this week's recruiting report. It's OU Texas week, a big week around here. That's pretty obvious as everything starts to unfold. We'll talk to Brent Venables tomorrow in Norman, and we'll talk to players Monday, Tuesday. George and I will be back for the Soonerscoop.com YouTube show practice report on Tuesday as well, following the Brent Venables press conference. But first things first, this is a recruiting report, and it's going to be very heavy, centered on a bunch of Oklahoma commits. And Josh, you just got back from the West Coast. You got back from California. Did you see my good friend Lincoln Riley? Did you make it to the Pacific Palisades?
No, I didn't, but I realized, and I didn't realize until I got back, that I was actually at the school that is the home of the James crew. So, Sierra Canyon there in the valley.
Very good. It was, I enjoyed my time out at Los Alamitos. I know that, there's not going to be a lot of people that want me to bring up the memories of Malachi Nelson, but we had a good time. I had a good time eating tacos with his family after his commitment to Oklahoma. Let's start there, though. The trip was out to see Devon Mitchell, and, I think that would be a good place to start because with Oklahoma's need at the tight end position, it was a very important get when he committed. It kind of started really the trickle-down effect for what everything that has happened with Oklahoma's current 2024 class, and, obviously with Devon reclassifying. But this was the first time that you were, I think, able to see him in person. Just kind of your overall thoughts on the number one tight end of the country.
Yeah, the last time I saw him in person was the Geyer Allen game. So I mean, he was obviously playing in a different state on a different team.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is this was like a walk down memory lane because the very first time I saw Mekhi Lemon and Malachi Nelson was the exact same game against the exact same team in the exact same stadium. Like, I mean, it was really strange. But watching Devon, Eddie, you kind of talked about, him kind of being a catalyst this summer. He was kind of one of the guys that started the ball really rolling for this 24 class. And it's interesting when you compare him because the guy that I think did it last summer was PJ Adebawore. And so you kind of look at it and similar in that just brings a very unique skill set to a huge need position for Oklahoma. And, watching him, this is a guy, I mean, probably somewhere between 6'3" and 6'4". It's one of those things where it's like, does it really matter? I don't care. Like, I don't care if he's 6'3 and a half or whatever, but lots of size, tremendous length. And the thing that probably stood out to me this time in watching him, and you can see it, like, look how big his hands are. Like, he catches everything with such ease. And he's one of those guys that, like, he's goofing around in warm-ups and making one-handed catches. And it doesn't look like, oh, he's really trying to do that. It's like, no, he does that all the time. You can tell that's very familiar for him. And it's not something that Joe John Finley and staff are going to work on and try to teach him. But when you mix that with his athleticism and the things he can do with the ball, I mean, it's hard to find many reasons why this guy isn't making an impact pretty early at Oklahoma.
Josh, I mean, you mentioned his hands. I mean, just watching him grab the ball there, the ball looks tiny in his hands.
Get out the way!
Look,
I felt for you.
Guy.
I felt for you, Josh. I felt for you.
That was
yeah.
I was just about to ask you too, Josh, how fast he is. He looks pretty fast in that clip because that's my big question. Is I think the guy's obviously athletically gifted and I mean he's huge. Watching him here, but how fast is he?
I think he's probably, I mean, like he's not Mark Andrews. Like, let's put it that way. Like, he's not going to go run 4.5 flat or something crazy like that, but he's in the low 4.6s. I think, I mean, like plenty explosive enough, especially at that size. And again, as a guy that the team he's playing is Fountain Valley in California, not a special team by any stretch of the imagination, but they had some good athletes and they were having trouble keeping up with him. I mean, like, so he can definitely run. The thing that I thought was the biggest point of growth from him from when I last saw him in that Allen Geyer game that, Eddie was at with me and can remember that game got so out of hand, was how physical he is as a blocker. Like, I mean, because he really had 3 or 4 catches. Losal was really able to just kind of run the ball and go in different directions with Fountain Valley putting a lot of attention his way. Like right here, I mean, this is not a guy that is going to be shy or hesitant about, doing a wham block in the middle of the offensive line. Like, he's very comfortable in that role, and I couldn't have been more impressed. And frankly, someone asked me within the live post as the game's going on, does he have a role for Oklahoma in 2023? There's no question to me. Like, this is a guy that is good enough right now to help Oklahoma. So he'll enroll in January, which we talked about in the interview. I mean, he's graduating a year and a half early, not a year, not a semester early, 3 semesters early. It's amazing. I've got to think that was part of the move to Los Al, was maybe he found some easier graduation. It was a little easier path with his credits. He's never specifically said that. That's just kind of me connecting dots. But I came away knowing he was really good, and I guess I went in knowing he was really good and left and was like, he's more college ready than I thought. I thought he was very gifted and we would kind of see some rough edges. There's plenty there to work on, don't get me wrong. But he has the right mental makeup that I wasn't as aware of before I was out there.
He looks like he could start Saturday in the Cotton Bowl. Just watching
and I think Oklahoma would like him to start Saturday in the Cotton Bowl.
He kind of looks too a little bit like Sanders for Texas. I mean, just in terms of size and ability. But he looks. That's my first time really seeing him in action. He looks incredible.
There's some comparison there, George, and it's probably because we're in the week we're in and it's just present in your mind. But again, I mean, there are, in the time I've been doing this, which is 20 years, I've seen Oklahoma recruit 2 tight ends that were of this caliber, and one was Jermaine Gresham and the other one was Mark Andrews. So I mean, like, this is the kind of territory you're talking about here with a guy that absolutely has NFL upside if it all comes together for him.
Good company.
Do you think that the maturity stuff that it takes to move to California, to go through this season, and then you're back to Oklahoma to enroll and go through classes, how do you think that that's going to translate? And just talking to him off camera, you can see the interview that Josh did with Devon on Soonerscoop.com's editorial page. How much do you think that translates to being ready, going through spring here in 24, and then in the spring of 24, and then ultimately getting ready for next season and stepping into a role that is going to obviously not be handed to him, but there is going to be a need there with the exit of Austin Stogner?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, because he's had to go into, it's not a foreign element. I mean, he has some connection out there, so it's not like it's nowhere to him. But entirely different setup. Very again, until you've watched football in California, you can't appreciate how different it is.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. Watching him, he's just more keyed up than anybody on that team. Like, he's played football at a factory like Allen. He knows what it's supposed to look like. And it's not, I mean, Los Al's a really good program out there. Don't get me wrong. It would be, for our Oklahoma and Texas listeners, maybe like I'm trying to think of a good comparison here. It's Myles Garrett School, not Arlington. It doesn't matter. Like a Broken Arrow, let's say it in Oklahoma, like a really good program going to at times compete for titles, but it's usually going to be 7, 8, 9 wins, or just a good program. And it's still, with them having multiple Division I guys on the roster, he acts different than everybody else. And the best way I can think to embody that is, I'm in the middle of their post-game celebration doing that interview, and there's people walking around us and moving around us. And I'm asking him about kind of the differences between California and Texas and what that move has been like. And he's like, Cali's soft. Like, he's saying it in front of everybody on the sideline.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I wish you would say something. Like, he's not, and it's not like aggressive toward his teammates, but he just knows he's not going to be questioned.
Point of contention, Braden Willis is going to be mad at us. Arlington Martin.
That's exactly who
we apologize to Braden. Martin. We apologize to Braden Willis and the San Francisco 49ers. You may never be let back in the state of California now.
Whenever they need me on the podcast on the Prairie, I'll come over and we'll put in a guest appearance.
Make amends. That was Thursday night, seeing Devon Mitchell. You went to see another Oklahoma commit on Friday night, and a guy that, I think that you told him during the interview that you can see on Soonerscoop.com's editorial page as well, Eugene Brooks. There's not a whole lot known about Eugene Brooks, just in terms of what he is to the class and, everything that he brings from Sierra Canyon. But you turn on the tape and we'll see the highlights here in a minute of Eugene. He is a massive, massive human being.
He is, but I will say the thing that stood out to me, he carries it much better than I thought he was going to. I thought there would be a lot more, like, oh, he's going to have to lose 20 pounds when he gets to school. And don't get me wrong, his body will change working with Jerry Schmidt and his crew, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was. Like, you can see definition in his arm. This is clearly not a guy that's not spent his time, around a weight bench. Like, he knows what he's doing. And the favorite clip, the one that made its way around Twitter, Eddie, when you put up that interview, is him just burying the guy. It was a weird game because there was a lot of, like, after the whistle penalties that were thrown, a lot of kind of problems with, I don't know what to call it other than just basic football physicality. Like, it was a very strangely called game. And I know everyone out there like, oh, that's California. Like, I've seen California games. I've never seen one officiated like that. It was strange. But the thing that stood out to me about him, aside from just that initial pop, is just his length. Like, he's going to be a guard or a center inside because he's probably about 6'2". So I think he's kind of a center guard type guy, but he's got long enough arms to where, like, he's not going to struggle to get leverage at times. Like, he's going to be able to work his way around a guy. He's going to be able to flip his hips. He can do some of that stuff because his arms are long enough and he's strong enough to kind of work a defensive lineman around a little bit. And like I said, with that strong base, he's going to be a good run blocker in my opinion. But I just, like I said, I came away more impressed just with the whole kind of package than I expected to be.
Is there maybe some Tyrese Robinson there? Would that be somebody that could be comparable?
There's some of that. I can absolutely see what you're talking about. I would almost say maybe, and I don't know that he runs this hot because not many people do, but there's some Drew Samia in there.
Okay.
Like the clip we're watching right now is the one I was referencing earlier, where, again, like, look at just the explosion in his hands. Like, and that's just, and guys, this isn't like, people will say, oh, who's he playing? This is Notre Dame, in Sherman Oaks, a good program out west, not special. We're not talking about Bosco or something like that, but it's a good program. And he just bullied them all night. And so, and you can look around, they've got some big guys on their roster. You can see it just watching them walk from the, in the after of the play, but there is, there's no question. Like, you can see what I really do think is interesting is, I will say, like I said, he's a little longer than I thought he was, but he's not quite as tall as I thought he was. So I'm interested to see if maybe they give him a look at center. Like, I wonder if that's a possibility and he could be that big physical, because OU so often, and I think some of it is by design. They've had
just being sideline, being off the field.
Those inside guys. So I think it'll be a little different to see maybe a big kind of heavy based guy and see what that might look like inside.
Josh, that clip kind of answered my question for you. Is he somebody that has some nasty to him? Because I think that's what you see a lot from Bill's guys. But what's his personality like? I mean, what's he like in terms of talking to him? Because we've seen guys come through here that have some nasty to him. We've seen some guys that are quieter guys, louder guys. I mean, what's he like, I guess, off the field? And does he have that, I don't know, Bill Beatenbow mindset that we often see with some of these guys?
Oh, you can tell once Bill gets a hold of him, there will be some hardening that will happen. Like, it's just he's a sweetheart of a kid, like real smiley. And, like one of those things too, where, and it's jarring, and you guys have been at enough high school games, like you'll see this big kid that you're like, holy crap. And then he smiles, like he's got braces on. Like, I mean, yeah. it's one of those deals where, like, you were so young and, like, you just kind of have to remind yourself sometimes. But, met his mom and his dad after the game, and just incredibly good, nice people. And in talking to him, again, like, you can tell there is a switch, like, because a lot of guys, including Devon Mitchell, during the game, they're kind of winking at me or they're giving me a thumbs up, like, hey, the ball might come my way this time. Like, that kind of stuff happens all the time. But with him, like, he would not make eye contact with me at any point through the game. Like, he was locked in. They were doing what they had to do. And again, this was a league game, which equates to district out there. So it was a big deal for him, and they're focused. But as soon as the game was over, I walked over to him, and he's got a big smile, and he's dapping me up, and just totally different person. So you can tell there's a switch that kind of goes. But at the same time, I mean, we know the first time Bill, sees something he doesn't like, there's going to be a bloodletting that will happen, and then everybody will kind of figure it out.
Let's stay on the offensive line. Let's move back to the state of Oklahoma. Soonerscoop.com correspondent Brig Bates was able to get out and see some OK Preps ball over the weekend. And let's start, Josh, with Josh Aisosa and Edmond Santa Fe. They rushed for 524 yards and a 54-17 win over Shawnee on, I believe it was Friday night. We'll get to the Carl Albert stuff here in a second. But Edmond Santa Fe, Josh Aisosa, and they have a 2025 running back that we're going to see here as well. Demarius Robinson is starting to make a little bit of wave through OK Preps. Just in terms of what Santa Fe is, I know we're familiar with the program. Bergen Kaiser, as well as a walk-on, a defensive end. Here's Robinson taking off right now. But Josh Aisosa was actually your future Sooners MVP this week after helping lead a rushing attack that goes for 524 on Friday night.
I mean, it would be criminal for me not to give it to an offensive lineman when they go for over 500 yards. Like, that again, like, we watch lots of good teams with good players and good running backs like Demarius Robinson, whose nickname is Man Man, which I just think is hilarious.
That's great.
But there is with my love of offensive line play, I had to give it to Josh. Like, you don't do that. It was tough the week before because, again, guys, Robinson went for 260 yards against Edmond North. The week before against Edmond Memorial, he went for over 300. This was his low week of the last couple of weeks. So, like, he is a big-time back. The kid you just saw track him down is a good player from Edmond North, kind of a guy that I think might sneak in and get maybe some FBS attention before the year. So, or before the year's out. The Braden Turner kid. Yeah, that's the big guy running with him here. Nice work from the booth here. But with Aisosa, again, this is a guy that I know a lot of people thought, oh, he's a 3-star and kind of overlooked him. This is a guy with a lot of basketball background, very good feet, moves around really well, and he's just getting his hands around football. Like, he just hasn't played a lot of ball. And you talk to people at Santa Fe, and they'll tell you, I mean, he's just scratching the surface. I mean, I know we use that a lot, but this is a guy that Oklahoma is using a lot of projection for. And you have to remember, he's pretty much, when things started to look a little sideways with Oklahoma's offensive line recruiting, he was the first guy they offered. This is a guy they liked. He was always going to be, if it was going to be a 5-man class and they didn't think they were going to get the first 5 they had planned, he was 6. Like, so this isn't some guy out of nowhere. They could have offered a lot of guys from coast to coast, and they've offered some more. Hell, they've gone beyond the coast with Daniel Akinkumi from England. So this is a guy they like a lot. I think he's definitely a guard in the college level, and I think he could be a really good one. He's going to have to continue to work on finishing blocks and being nasty and being that guy, like I said, that is a football player rather than a converted basketball player. But I think it's there for him because when you watch him play, we're talking about Eugene Brooks. Josh is the same way. Josh has that attitude when he's out there. Like, he wants to get after people. He wants to bury them. And as he gets more technically refined, that'll get easier.
It looks like, just watching the tape there, Josh, that maybe Brooks is a little bit further along, I would say. I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched all their tapes, but it looks like Brooks is more, ready to play earlier. But what's it like? Both those guys are playing left tackle in high school. You mentioned both of them playing inside in college. I mean, how difficult of a transition is that for those guys, and do you think it'll be easy for either of them?
I think it's one of those things that it's you can never tell from player to player how long that will take. But at the same time, it's a very common one because, I mean, you guys know, you go see a good offensive lineman, he's invariably playing tackle. Like, I mean, and usually left side, but sometimes right. There is some, whether they're going to be a quick tackle, what the scheme is like, how left tackle important it is. But again, they both strike me as very sharp guys. They get it. They are. Josh is a worker. Like I've said before, like I really believe in kids that have a mindset like his. And it's, guys, I know you talked about it. I can't remember. I think it was one of the post-game pods. Just the players, like how much they all seem to be of the right mindset. They kind of understand what they need to be saying, what they need to be doing, what it all looks like. These are those kind of guys. Like they understand what the buy-in has to be. We mentioned Eugene Brooks. This is a guy that's playing at a program that's won 2 state titles in the last 15 years in California. Like Sierra Canyon's a very good program out there that has multiple Division I guys, including they've got a young defensive end that I've heard through the grapevine OU is now aware of, a big-time 2027 guy named Richard Wesley that I would bet money has an OU offer within the next year.
2027?
So they are, yeah.
God.
6'5", 230-pound, 2027 freshman defensive end. Like, I saw him and I was like, oh, that's a good-looking kid. I wonder if he's a senior. Look at my roster, and it's like freshman. You're like, okay, we're making a note of that guy. And then they've got a corner that's like 6'3", 170, and already has 3 Pac-12 offers. So another freshman. So, just crazy, some of the guys. And that's what you get out in California, because there's not the same level of coverage. So you get these guys. I mean, a guy like that in Texas, everybody would have written 12 stories about him already. As it is, those guys are largely unknown.
That's unbelievable. Staying with OK Preps, Brig also got out to see Carl Albert. They win 70-0 on Thursday night, actually. Xavier Robinson goes for 14 carries, 134 yards, 10 yards per carry. Kevin Sperry, the 2025 Oklahoma quarterback commit, 8 for 14, 114 yards and a touchdown. A pretty slight night of work. I think that they were probably out of the game early, but this is a program in Carl Albert that we've talked about, Josh, and I think that we will talk about more and more here over the next couple years. They are primed and kind of destined to win another 5A state title this year.
Talking to some coaches that have played them, and I was talking, and Eddie, you and I have kind of had this conversation. I was talking to somebody that has Del City on the schedule, let's put it that way, and was talking about how good Del City is. And I was like, do you think they can make a run at Carl Albert? And it was like, no. Like Del City's really good, would win state a whole bunch of times, and they're probably not within 17 points of Carl Albert. Like this team is just freaky talented. Like it's frightening how many good players, because again, this isn't like there's just this random senior class or junior class or whatever it may be showing up at this school. It's at Carl Albert where there's a whole bunch of good football players that will never play Power 5 football or Division I football, surrounded by 5 or 6 freak shows. Like it's not fair. Like it's just insane. I mean, guys, they dusted Muskogee.
Yeah.
And Muskogee's might win 6A too. So, I mean, it's just, again, they're so talented. Xavier Robinson, again, we don't even know what they can be yet because nobody's really forced them out of third gear. I mean, like they haven't been pushed at all, and maybe they won't be. So it's interesting. What I find really interesting is kind of Kevin Sperry, how they balance that, because he's gone from a terrible program where he's having to carry everything to arguably the most dominant team probably in this region of the country. I mean, like, I don't know of another way to say that. And having to do, like you said, going 8 for 14, and he's done, he probably threw his last meaningful pass mid-second quarter. So that's an interesting balance. And I know a lot of people want to see him move up in the rankings and do all those things. That's tough to do when you're not putting up the gaudy numbers, because that just doesn't draw everyone's attention. So that'll be kind of interesting to watch how that goes, because I definitely think he is undervalued where he is ranked, but it's hard to push that ball up the hill when I send it to somebody and they're like, Josh, he threw for 150 yards last week. Like, I get it, but it doesn't change what's there.
Watching Xavier Robinson every single time I see him,
doesn't make sense, does it?
I'm like, is he getting bigger? Like, he just is so big. He's just a big dude.
My eyes just get drawn to his feet too, for how big he is, for him to make some of the jump cuts that he does. It's truly impressive. I don't know that, at least in the state of Oklahoma, we haven't seen somebody like that in a long time. I almost think back to Josh, and this is a man that terrorizes me because he almost killed me actually on the high school field. Freddie Carolina from Jinx.
Yeah. Wow, that's a name that's a deep cut there, Eddie. That I'm not sure everybody's going to remember. But Freddie was an excellent player. Same deal, and I would say very similar in a lot of ways. Xavier just happens to run 4.6.
Sure,
Freddie did
right.
And that's really where you run into that difference. Where Xavier, like Freddie, can get to the second level however you want. Like you said, he's got the feet to shake you, or he can run over you, whatever you want to choose. And then at the same time, once he gets there, he can run with the defensive backs, and you're just like, that's just not fair, man. Like it's crazy. I'm a big guy, and I wouldn't want to have any of that action in open field. No, thank you.
Who's the running back that played for A&M all those years ago? That they
Jamar Toombs?
Was that whoever they called the Train? I think they called him.
You're talking about Jaworski Lane.
Jaworski Lane.
That's who he
even
reminds
deeper
me
cut.
of. That's who he reminds me of. Like just a powerful dude. Like I can just imagine short yardage, just hand the ball off to that guy.
His same deal. Like Lane was, you're like, how does he have feet like this? Like he could. I mean, Jaworski Lane was a big time guy to Lufkin years ago, and was kind of that Lufkin pipeline where they just sent guys to A&M for years, including Reggie McNeil, who OU fans will darkly remember. But they, again, like that lateral quickness where, that's the crazy thing. Like Xavier Robinson's just making the choice of what he wants to do. Like, do I want to run over you, or am I going to make a quick move to the left? And you can't keep up with that. Like, so he's really interesting. And I get why OU fans are so excited about him. I also get why he's kind of ranked where he is. He's not going to be the sexy, explosive back that does all the big things. But again, like if you told me 3 years from now he's Oklahoma's leading rusher, I'm not going to be surprised at all. I mean, he is a very talented guy and is a solid receiver as well. Like there's more to him than just being a power back.
It's a fun trio with DeMarco. DeMarco's bringing in, I should say, with Taylor Tatum, the number one running back in the country, and then Andy Bass, the kid out of Oklahoma City at Heritage Hall, who I saw on Thursday night as well, and he just did exactly what he had done in the times I'd seen him before. Break off a 61-yarder, and all of a sudden you look up and Heritage Hall's up 42, nothing, or 35-0 at halftime and 42-0. 2.5 minutes into the third quarter. So Brig Bates did catch up with Xavier Robinson, talking about his commitment and relationship with DeMarco Murray. Here he is.
About thoughts on OU. Obviously year 2 under Brent Venables looks like it's improving. Systems improving. Defense is going. Offense is getting going as well.
Everything's going great. I'm staying in touch. with all the coaches. Especially I want to stay in touch. My position coach, Coach Murray. And Coach Levy and Coach Venables. And they always stay in touch with me. And the support system has always been great. And seeing this OU team develop from the year before, it's amazing seeing the process and seeing the way Coach V step up, for this next year and seeing everything just going great.
Tell me a little about your thoughts on OU. I imagine that had a little persuasion on that coming back to Oklahoma.
I never, for me, be the hometown, I never really struggled on this decision, not quite. My family always loved OU. I was a big fan of OU. I always watched it growing up. Love looking at the background of OU when it comes to history of running backs with Murray and AD. I really look up to those guys. Study the film. So it's really a blessing, and I love this. I love this city and this town.
Awesome. Got the offer, staying home. Crimson and Cream. Staying in the Crimson Cream, but you still got one more year left. So what's kind of your biggest thing? Finish up your high school career here.
Yeah, I just want to finish it up. Hopefully no problems. Finishing up my senior year, but really spending as much time, with this team, this family, and it's a great school. I'll spend as much time as I can, before I leave. So I know it's gonna be a struggle up there with Smitty coming in December. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really just enjoying it while I can.
Special thanks to Brig for going out there and getting a little bit of OK Preps coverage in to match with Josh's trip to California. So that's going to be it for the recruiting portion of this. But Josh, while we have you here, it's the biggest week on Oklahoma's football schedule, and coming off of a 50-20 victory over Iowa State, they improved to 5-0. George and I talked about it on the post-game instant reaction show. We talked about it on the Eskridge Lexus post-game show as well. I think everything that we said for this Oklahoma football team over the last couple of weeks was, and maybe even going back into August, was they have to be 5-0. You have to be simply perfect before you get to Dallas, and Oklahoma's done just that. Big showdown coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, Eddie, and I know being the gambling man that you are, there's going to be appreciation for great teams cover, man. So,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
How many undefeated teams are 5-0 against the spread? I mean, there can't be many. And because there's just been eggs laid. And I think that's the worst you can say is Oklahoma against I would say Cincinnati was probably the most flat performance. And that was your road test. Obviously Cincinnati, as you guys know better than me, the fans were nuts. Like it was a big time environment. And I thought Oklahoma did well. The thing I took away from the Iowa State game was just how well they handled that adversity. At 21-20, guys, we know how that game plays out over the last 4 or 5 years.
100%.
To see them kind of grow from that and really just put their foot on the gas, and Iowa State couldn't keep up. I thought that was a huge sign. And again, looking at where that offense is offensively, it feels like they're starting to accept who they are. Like they're a pass-first team. They're just going to have to be. They're not going to overwhelm people with the run game. They're going to do it enough to keep people honest. And I think they can have some success with it because going through the Monday Morning Idiot, I thought there were moments where you're like, this is close. Like they're just little things here or there. Tawee Walker broke off a 50-yard run that gets called back, and if J.J. Huster just lets go of the guy, he's not making the play. So it wasn't like it impacted what happened. It's just fine-tuning those little things. So, I think Oklahoma can be fine here. I'm working on under the hood for Texas, and Texas is a good team. I mean, this is the best Texas team I've watched in a long time. There's no question about it. But like the rest of college football, they're not invincible. I mean, there are holes to be had. Kansas is right there midway through the third quarter. I think Lance Leipold kind of gaffed and got a little too aggressive a little too early and just gave Texas a lot of momentum, and they couldn't keep up after. It was kind of like what we saw with the Iowa State game for Oklahoma. Like they hit a gear that Kansas just couldn't keep up with anymore. So I think, like I said, we'll watch more as the week goes on. I know we've got a lot of content and we'll talk about it all, but this is a game Oklahoma can win. I clearly understand Texas being the favorite, but this idea that I don't know if Oklahoma can play with Texas. Now, can they win? We'll see.
Josh, what's the weakness, maybe the number one weakness you see in Texas right now? Like I know you're just kind of diving into the film, but what's one area that you're like, I think Oklahoma can take advantage of this?
I think they are defensively almost an exact opposite build of Oklahoma, where I think Oklahoma's strength is the back seven. I think Texas's strength is the front seven. And up the middle, Alfred Collins and Devondre Sweat are monsters. Like they are a problem. Collins is one of those interior pass rushers that has the agility to to create pressure in the passing situations. Oklahoma's going to have to be mindful of that. But in the secondary, you watch that Kansas game, you watch the Alabama game. Alabama is as a poor passing offense as they are, and Jalen Milroe and all his limitations, they found joy down the field. They found big plays vertically. And I know part of that is Texas being sold on stopping the run, and I understand that. But that doesn't mean your coverage was good or you were where you were supposed to be. And I think we can all accept Dylan Gabriel is a much more functional passer than anyone Texas has seen to date. So I think that is an interesting avenue. I also think in the same conversation where you're talking about what Texas can do on the perimeter, you look at some of the problems they had with some of the option looks that Kansas gave them. I'll about bet money Oklahoma it may not be spread option. They may not be doing, what Jason Bean was doing where they're just running almost a triple option out of the shotgun. But I think you're going to see them do some stuff out on the edges where Texas has to make plays in space because they didn't look very clean doing it against Kansas. So you're going to test that and see, do you have this figured out or do you not? And, we'll get an answer, but I think that's something Oklahoma definitely has to kind of probe and see what's there.
With that in mind, it kind of goes back to what we talked about on the Eskridge Lexus postgame podcast. There's a lot riding on the left arm of Dillon Gabriel going into this game. This is the biggest game that I think, he's probably played in up to this date in his life, and really, truly kind of one of those games that he could kind of make a statement. And I don't know about cement himself in the, lexicon or whatever that is of Oklahoma quarterbacks, but certainly take a step in the right direction and get to 6-0, which would be, I think you start having more conversations about how far this thing can go for Oklahoma moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, like you talk about the history of Oklahoma quarterbacks, that's a pretty tough group to crack. We all understand that. But is there anything that would endear Dillon Gabriel to Oklahoma fans more than, he went to, he's making a run at Caleb Williams. Like, he's making a run at that Heisman. And again, that's getting way out ahead of ourselves. Right. I absolutely know it. But you go out and drop 350 and beat Texas, you're in that conversation. Like, I had somebody, our guy Donnie Hazelwood, one of our board moderators, hit me up earlier this week and it's like, if OU wins this game, how soon is too soon for playoff conversation? It's not too soon. Like, you win this game, that conversation is very real, and you handle the business that's in front of you, you're going to the playoffs. Like, I mean, that's as simple as it is.
I think that, George, I think you probably agree with this. Josh, I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong. This is, right now, I think it's pretty fair and accurate to say this will be matchup number one of what could be two matchups this year with Texas.
I don't think there's any doubt. Right. Guys, you look around the Big 12.
It's not a very good
Kansas
conference
State,
right now.
There is a lot of – and it's not just the Big 12. Like, you look around college football, there's a lot of mediocre football being played.
Yeah.
I think there's about 10 or 12 teams that are anywhere from very good to pretty good, and then I don't know what's behind that. Like, sure. It's crazy. And again, it's not even according to the rankings, because I would include Clemson in that conversation. They've just taken two tough beats. But again, like you look at the Big 12, and obviously Kansas State's a threat. TCU, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with them.
We checked
now
that
West
score.
Virginia?
We checked the score multiple times Saturday night just to make sure, and I did it throughout Sunday. Did West Virginia beat TCU? Just to make – and I don't know if you heard our conversation on the postgame podcast. There's a very real possibility that they walk into Norman 8-1 on November 11th, which is just insane.
Again, Eddie, as a gambler, can you tell me what the odds I could have gotten for Neil Brown rolling into Norman at 8-1?
I mean, they had him. They had him fired at Big 12 Media Day. People were literally asking him about this being his final year in Morgantown, and if the athletic director wouldn't have gotten fired this past year, he probably would have been fired. He just didn't want to have to go through the coaching search.
Yep, that is again, and guys, and you were there. I wasn't, but Neil Brown and kind of the way he was just so I don't know a better way to say it than indignant at the Big 12 Media Days about what their perception was. And I laughed it off. I was like, dude, I get it. You're saying what you got to say, but you know what's coming. And you're just like, holy crap. Like and they are just finding ways to win football games. It's incredible. It's awesome. Like I love that. And I saw something where I think it was Bill Connolly put out they're fourth or fifth most likely to win the Big 12 due to, under his numbers. Like obviously part of that is they've started off 2-0 and, on the right track, but that's amazing. Like again, like I don't know. They'd really have to tailspin for Neil Brown not to keep his job next year.
As disappointing as Oklahoma State's been, I think it's just the exact opposite for West Virginia in this conference. And we'll see what BYU is. I still don't know if they're any good. Cincinnati, I don't think is very good. They're good up front with the Corleone kid, but that was a weird game on Friday night. It didn't take too long after Oklahoma's game on Saturday night to start talking about Texas. And it's interesting that Dillon Gabriel, he didn't play in the game a year ago, and the 49-0 mark is on a lot of the players' minds. Here's a little bit of audio from the Red Room after Oklahoma's game against Iowa State.
Just being sidelined, being off the field, it's just not fun. I play the game because I love it. It's something I'm passionate about. And you work so hard with a group of guys, and not being able to be on the field with them just didn't feel the best. But I think you learn a lot from those moments as well, as a player and then as a group.
I mean, what doesn't? It's kind of a rivalry that goes second to none. I think just such deep history involved with it. Both undefeated, just excited to see what we can do.
48-0 last year. Was that the score? That was
49.
49. Yeah. I think everyone on the team, including myself, now that I'm here, has to take that all since last year. They all had to take that. So I know the guys are fired up, and I'm a competitor. I think all the dudes that came in are really competitors, and no one wants to lose to Texas. No one likes Texas. So
everybody knows what time it is. Everybody in our locker room knows what time it is. I know what time it is. I've been trying to keep next week out of my mind for the last 2 weeks. Just focus on where your feet are. Be in the present. You know what I'm saying? So last year, it hurt real bad, and everyone remembers it, and that's all that really needs to be said about that. We need to have a great week of practice, a dedicated week of practice. We need to make sure that we execute on the highest levels and go out there. We got to play a good opponent. We got a good opponent next week. You feel me? A worthy opponent for sure. So they're a good team with a good coach, and I just feel like we're gonna get it done. We got to go out there and get it done.
I mean, no doubt. When you get blown out like that, obviously it's not how these guys wanted the game to go. That just puts more fuel to the fire, a little more juice.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the weeks, but we got to treat every week the same, preparation-wise, opponent-wise. It's just the next game, trying to go 1-0.
I mean, my whole life I watched the game on TV. I've never been, but I watched the game. I know I have a lot of friends at OU that go to the game. All the players talk about that game. It's way more important than OU, OSU. So I thought OSU, OU was like the biggest game of the year. I thought it was crazy, and then they're like, no, Texas is that game for us. And so just seeing that, I mean, I'm excited. I'm just excited.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously last year happened. Been through the fire, we've been scarred up, but we're ready to go, man. We're excited. We've been looking forward to this, since last year. I'm really excited what we can do.
I don't want to hate or say nothing bad about last year's Team 128. It was my freshman year. I loved them, but I feel like this year we just not going for nothing. Like, we just not on none of that soft stuff, like nothing. Like, we going hard. Like, someone punches in the mouth, we finna punch them back. I remember, I'm not going to say any specific games. I just remember some games we got punched in the mouth, man. I feel like we never recovered last year. And this year, I feel like we could recover from anything, man, because for one, we locked in like real brothers. Whole team loves each other, and the whole team is willing to go out there and die on the field, really. Like, we'll go out there and put it all out there on the field to get our name back, because I don't know about everybody, but I know for a fact, I can't speak for everybody in this specific instance, but I know how I feel. Man, they tried to take our pride from us last year. They called us out our name. They said that we was sorry, we not OU, this, that, and the third, and I'm not really here for none of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so as long as we keep going hard the way we are, I feel like everything that God has in store for us is going to come to us, man, because we got a great team, bro. I feel like we got a great team, a great coaching staff. We got great leaders on the team, you feel me? And I don't even feel like I'm necessarily one of the leaders. I feel like I kind of just a guy who just is playing my role and following the leadership of others, you feel me? I feel like that's where I'm at in my life right now. I feel like that's what's important for me to do is just learn how to follow others better, learn how to be led and stop always trying to be the loud leader, you know what I'm saying? So as the season goes on, man, I just can't wait to see what else we got in store.
Jaden Gibson would die on the football field.
I don't know if anybody needs to die this weekend, but you certainly do love the mentality coming out of the Oklahoma locker room here as Oklahoma heads into OU Texas week. Josh, it's going to be fun. You'll be back with us on Wednesday for the Unofficial 40 podcast, which you can find on all podcasting platforms. And then George and I will be back on Tuesday for the Tuesday practice report following Brent Venables' Texas week press conference. I know Steve Sarkisian was on the podium today down in Austin. The one tidbit that did come out of that press conference setting was the status of Jatavian Sanders, and that's going to be super interesting to follow throughout the week after he left the game on Saturday against Kansas with an ankle injury. And this is where I'll leave you, Josh. How are they going to match up with him? I mean, it's going to be it's already a tough matchup without Justin Harrington now. It becoming official that he's going to be lost for the year with the ACL injury. That was such a perfect, I think, matchup for what they wanted to do at the cheetah position. Is it as simple as throwing Peyton Bowen at him, or where do you go on that? You're on mute, sir.
Oh, no. All right.
Now everybody can see it, too. We used to keep this
official.
in-house.
It had to happen. Yeah, it was always behind audio. You couldn't see me screw up. But no, with with Sanders, I think it's almost like a great shooter in basketball. Like you keep throwing different types of bodies at him. Like we're going to put McCullough, who's going to get physical with him and try to push him around and move him off the spot. Very similar athletes, McCullough and Sanders. At the same time, Sanders is probably a little twitchier, and he's obviously a little more comfortable running routes than Deshaun McCullough is. And then, hey, you come in with Peyton Bowen, and Peyton Bowen's going to try to get into the middle of passing lanes, and he's going to do some stuff because he's a lot more nuanced as a pass defender. So I think you just keep throwing different looks at him and try to do some different stuff. The good, I hate to say the good news, because I'm one of those people, like, I want the best teams on the field. Like, I want JT Sanders to play. I want to see him out there and see how OU copes with that. But from an Oklahoma fan's perspective, they're just worried about a win. If he's not ready to be claimed as anything at this point, he's clearly questionable. I mean, they don't know what they've got. And if he's there, he's probably not going to be full speed. So it's again, Jatavian Sanders, I don't think, other than Brock Bowers, I think he's the best tight end in the country. Like he is really, really good, and could have been a better defensive end, but that's a recruiting argument that I'm not going to get into today. But again, he's a special player, and for Texas to lose him, I mean, I can't even think of a good comparison to what it would be like if Oklahoma lost somebody, because I mean, that is Quinn Ewers' security blanket. That is his big play down the middle, and the way he can attack a defense, we're saying, it almost doesn't matter who you put on him, because if Quinn Ewers is right, it's really tough to stop Jatavian Sanders, just because he is such a physical presence in the middle of the field.
I think it'd be almost like losing Andrell Anthony in a way, in terms of security blanket and what he can do for the Oklahoma offense. But yeah, I agree with Josh. I mean, Peyton Bowen, I said it to you earlier, Eddie, in the office. I'd throw him out there because at least he's going to be in coverage, and maybe he can make a play on the ball. Like, that's my thought, is like, he may not be able to tackle him every single time and be physical with him, but he could definitely make a play on the ball. I don't know. I agree, though, Josh. Throw a bunch of bodies at him. I mean, hell, put Woody Washington or Gentry on him and let them try and cover him. I don't know.
Gentry Williams, he was a guy that got stock up for us on Saturday, Josh. I said because of the way he's tackling right now, the way he's playing the run is fantastic.
Guys, why are they still throwing bubble screens to his side? Stop doing it. Like, it's not working, because the Iowa State one where he gets a tackle for loss on the bubble. Like, if you're thinking, for me on a bubble as a corner, if you're out there on an island, if you hold it to 3 yards, great. You've done your job. Like, that's outstanding. But to just shed the blocker entirely and tackle the receiver where he stands, and we're not talking about some nobody. This is Jalen Noel, who's a good player in the Big 12, and Gentry just stones that play. They didn't run it at him again. Like, at that point, they're like, okay, we don't need any more of that problem. Guys, he's like, it's starting to feel like this is going to be maybe OU's next great defensive back. Like, sure. I mean, and which crazy, because Peyton Bowen's there, who you can make that argument for him as well. So you're starting to see that personnel really start to grow. And, we're watching all these young guys, and I said it, and I know, George and I talked about how we were, it was so quiet in the fall on him, and you didn't know what to make of that. In my Fearless 20, I had a prediction that he was going to lead the Big 12 in interceptions. I chickened out, I got scared, and I put in Josiah Wagner's going to start 10 games.
Oh, no.
That trade has not worked out for me. That has not been a great decision in my life.
Well, maybe we can revisit that at the halfway point, which will be after Saturday, after Oklahoma's 6th game. Josh, we appreciate it. George, your arms look small today. What's up with that?
I've been busy, Eddie. I haven't been able to go to the gym as much. I probably won't hit the gym at all this week with all the content we're going to be doing. I've been living in the studio, Eddie, with you.
Unbelievable excuses, Josh. Unbelievable excuses. No, we appreciate it.
We need,
what?
Get him some dumbbells in there, Eddie. Let's get him some dumbbells in there. He can just do them while the show goes.
Well, the heavy lifting that I do on this show, I don't have to work out. All right. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. We will talk to you on Tuesday right here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. Brent Venables' press conference, as well as a Tuesday practice report. OU Texas week, best week of the year. We'll see you then.